Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rick Spisak. I'm executive producer and co-host of Poets of the East. My co-host, Mircea Duta, may have some technical difficulties, but I'm sure he'll be arriving soon. If not, we'll just have to, I won't say soldier on, but we will pieceworker on. How about that? My first guest, Valeria Barbas. Welcome, welcome. She is from the Republic of Moldova. And then we'll be joined by our friend Ian Mckenzie from the lovely nation of the UK. And he'll give us some more details about that in a few minutes. But Valeria, welcome. I would like you to talk to us a little bit about your young life. Were you one of those people that picked up a pencil and a crayon and started doing things creative when you were just a young one? Or did this come a little later? Talk about the young Valeria, please.
Thank you for inviting me for this amazing interview and this program. And hello to everybody who is listening and who is watching this program. What about myself? I'm here in Chisinau, capital of Republic of Moldova. And I was born here in '84. And I would define myself as a multimedia artist because I'm dealing with sound and with images, with videos, and poetry came into my life afterwards. Because I think before writing something, it should be a long period of developing some fundamental thoughts maybe and some experience in life, because you cannot write about nothing. Actually, this is a problem because with time experience, with life experience, there are more and more stuff that you can reflect on. And this doesn't mean that young people shouldn't write at all. It doesn't mean at all. But as for myself, I had a background as a musician and as a visual artist, as a painter. So I started to learn composition and violin and musical school, Republican School of Chisinau, and then I graduated the Conservatory on Composition, and I also graduated the Pedagogical Institute on Painting, and so on. I try to develop these mediums and to give them a mixed view in some experimental films, using the sound, using the images. I still paint, I still compose music, and I'm singing some songs. I'm activating as a contemporary artist for 15 years. I'm collaborating with Center for Contemporary Art. I have different exhibitions, group exhibitions, solo exhibitions, as activating as a performer, installation, video art, experimental film. And with experimental film, I applied to different festivals, and my recent one was accepted to the Moscow Experimental International Film Festival, and Canada also. And I have a strong collaboration with German artists through Goethe Institute here in Republic of Moldova. So the text dimension, it wasn't so easy for me, because I was used to reflect, to reveal my thoughts musically and visually through painting. And I think the pencil, the first was using the pencil for drawing. And then how to connect it to the words. This is a question, because and this is how I start to developing this dimension besides the music and the visual. I try to, okay, I want to say something. I want to make maybe a scenario firstly, then a poetical thought. And I'm working on concepts, on different concepts for a long time. Actually, I have long-term projects that I'm working for 1 year or 2 years. And I try to develop different dimensions of the same idea that is bothering me, and that the idea that I cannot sleep, and usually it's on some problematics, some of them social, some of them really intimate and personal. But I guess some of these projects I can share you today with you.
You know, I'm intrigued. I had a very similar path in certain ways. I was a musician trained early. I started playing very young, and poetry came to me later. But I am intrigued when we talk about music. I'm interested in what kind of music moved you when you were young, when you were just starting out. What inspired you? Was it the Chopins, the Beethovens, the Wagners?
Yeah, surely, surely. When I was young, and it was classics, and it was Rachmaninoff. Actually, it was Rachmaninoff, more romantic one, and Bach, because the polyphonical thinking and how it sounds, different toccatas, and the music for organ, it was really monumental, and the philosophy, and it's totally different, actually, different period of music, but the tastes are developing during life. So I also adore now Rachmaninoff, and I also like opera, and I may like Puccini and Verdi, but also I like some electronical fusion music, and some jazz folk, and I'm also singing, implying some folklore motifs from Romanian folklore.
So much of classical music comes from folklore themes.
Yes, actually, many national schools were founded on folklore, and even Moldavian and Romanian school of music. The first operas on ballet were developing, where the base was inspired from the music, from some of the folklore music, from the traditional folklore, because it was the basic of founding national academical school of music. And it happened to Moldova, and happened to Norvegia, it happened to Romania, it happened to actually a lot of countries on the post-colonial, let's say, development, when they were part of some big empires. And suddenly, 20th century, they were building their own identity in terms of school of music.
One other question I want to ask you in that developmental part of you, I also had an experience where in my early teen years, I met artists who did performance light art. And I wanted to mention that because I know your work combines the video, the film, as well as music, as well as poetry. And I know that in my experience, the academic world of music, the academic world of graphic arts, is normally quite different, quite separate from this performance multimedia space. And I was wondering, was it your own inner desire, or were you sparked by something that you saw in performance light art or in experimental film that opened that door for you?
Our education is also really conservative and academical, and you are right. But it gives you some inputs, and I was really marked by Fluxus movement and Viennese actionism, and I was always going to museums and contemporary art museums abroad, not in Romania, in London. I saw Bill Viola, so it was a really enrichable for me. So, and a lot of members like John Cage and boys were experimenting with sound. Yeah, right. So why not? And I felt also maybe a bit in opposition, and I wanted to do something else, because we didn't have much avant-garde here in Republic of Moldova. As I said, we we were just wake up in the 90s after the post-Soviet time, and then we should have built something. We should have built something faster and go faster. So there was no time for avant-garde, I think.
Can
So
I ask you a question? I'm
yeah.
sorry. Can I ask you a question about that? And if it's tender ground that shouldn't be discussed, I understand. But I am curious how that post-Soviet era impacted an artist as innovative as yourself. Was it something that were you feeling constrained and then it opened up, or is your experience more after the era of the Soviets and that you could be creative and very exploratory?
It gives a good basis. Sorry. I had a really good school of music. I mean, in terms of musicology, and it was based on Soviet musicology and even a German way of model studying. It was a very serious academical studying process, and it gives you a really strong base. But in the same time, there was some censorships in terms of connection with the Western culture and exploring avant-garde movements. Even in Russia was dissidents. I mean, the composers who like Gubaidulina, I mean, they were composing something new. This is how our Festival of New Music started in '91. And a lot of different movements, new movements and festivals started in '91. And this why I can relate that the Soviet era had a big pluses in terms of culture and knowing Russian culture and knowing a wonderful composers like Shostakovich and Rachmaninoff, even though he emigrated in States. But yeah, this is why it impacted even the lives of the biggest one because of the censorship and because yeah, and we feel it now because there was some gaps. The culture didn't evolved the way it could have been evolved, and an entire direction as the avant-garde just disappear. So yeah, it has pluses and minuses, and I feel like somebody took for me it like I don't know, frustrated a bit, like somebody steals something really important for you, that steals your future, I mean, or that steals some values. I can say, I don't know if the connection is still on. For me as an artist, and I believe every artist want to have access to everything, want to explore different information, and it's like this censorship doesn't allow you to do anything, doesn't allow you to be free in any movements. Yeah. Hello, Mircea.
And we have Mircea. Mircea, good to see you, sir. Good
Hello,
to see you.
I have a very unstable connection. I'm sorry for being late.
That's okay.
I'm finally here, so I'm sorry for. So I will mute my microphone.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're getting close to the time when I'm going to ask you to perform. Valeria, you are now a performance artist who both writes and does film and does live events and sings and performs. Does your center of gravity put you more in films and performance art, or more poetry, or there's no differentiation?
There is no really focus. I'm working on some ideas, and I'm just trying to make it wide somehow and to make it accessible, and I'm trying to add different dimension to it. For example, one of my films were accepted to Insonora Festival from Madrid, and it was accepted as a musical piece, but in the same time, the same film was accepted to Moscow International Experimental Film as a film. So I think the mediums in our century, the boundaries in between mediums are becoming not so, becoming more vague, and even
Absolutely.
in the terms of festivals, they have concrete categories that are dedicated to multimedia, that sound, video art, and so on. I mean, the video art itself, it has already a history, and it implies the text, it implies performance, it implies sounds, and this is a time that we are living in. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, would you like to start with a recitation, or would you want to start with one of these video elements that you sent me to play?
I want to present you a project called White Room.
Okay.
It had different presentation. You will see a selection of photographies, and you will hear music piece, a duo for flute and marimba, played by Anastasia Gusarova and Vasily Moskvitin. And I will read the poem, White Room. I was working on this multimedia project because there is a film also the last 2 years in the pandemic isolation. And I was working on memory, body, space, and depression, and the interdependency in between them as body isolation, double isolation as a body and mind. And I propose you to listen this poem as it was presented as a photography and film and text at St. Petersburg Gallery Duta, and this year it was presented at Chika Museum in Korea.
Okay.
Contemporary Art.
Yeah. I will then
White
play
Room.
it. Okay.
I hear noise. My ear has blocked. In silence, peace can be in a blockade. A coronary tooth fell out. I lost my crown, but it did not fall from Jesus. A painted image of Insta painters. Instantly, I hear noise. White, red, white, red, white, red, white, red, white, black, white, black. The piece is big. White, black, white, black. It smells of stale meat. B-A-C-H sounds instantly. Blind light, even if I hide it on the windowsill. I'm afraid the piece will fall gray, bone eroded by the cat. My green-gray forest crown of miracle, of a bird's void, of my noise, rattling, muffling shot, somewhere in silence, red, white, white, black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white, black. He listened to me instantly. I hear noise. Same ear is blocked. The movement is blocked in silence in my small couch that I can barely move and I can barely breathe. I sleep and I wake up again and again, and all the same. And this is timeless. There is nothing specific in self-isolation. specifically when you realize that it has been a condition of your own non-existence for the last 15 years. Nothing unusual in loneliness, nothing unusual in being in lockdown, without people around, just appearance of presence. Shiny lipstick, a comfortable mind locked down, can stick the holes in the walls. Physically self-isolated body is reflecting exactly what mind is going through, free from any appearance. My gray strings in hair, my red hole from the falling tooth, my right ear deafness, white noise window into more alive than ever. I finally am present.
Lovely. Lovely.
Thank you.
May I ask one
Well,
question
the
about the
truth
music?
is,
I was just going to say, was the music a composition or free form improvisation?
Oh, it was a composition
Thank you.
for duo, and it have also a solo version for flute only. It was interpreted in the Philharmonic Hall and times of Days of New Music Festival as a musical, just as a musical piece.
It was lovely. Lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
Mircea, did you want to make a comment, my friend?
yes, thank you very much. I wanted to mention the fact that 30 minutes ago, I had an interview with Ondřej Matl, a great poet and prosaic from Czech Republic. If you remember, he was also our guest at Poets of the East, and we discussed about poetry and performance, and whether poetry can resist without performance or performance without poetry. I'm very happy Valeria is here as a living proof that poetry, performance, plastic arts, image, and life could connect, could be an excellent synthesis within a very special form of art which she created. And I'm very happy that she brought these materials with her, and I'm happy she managed to be our guest today at Poets of the East. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mircea. I'm glad to see you. Mulțumesc.
So let me ask you to, would you like to perform another piece? Which one of the
Yes,
pieces
yes.
you've sent? Which one?
I would like to present the next piece called Close Enough.
Okay.
And it will be superposed on the music called Post-Apocalyptic Landscape.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm exhausted. My body is exhausted, and my mind so tired of my being in the focus and voiding it in the same time. I'm keeping to hide myself, to delete my body, to mute my voice from the frame. And this is comfortable. Non-existence is comfortable. Keeping the distance, to go closer, close enough. Enough is how much? Even now I'm hiding, exposing myself. I'm afraid of that, to be ashamed of my being, to be framed. What is the reality of my body? My corporal reality. To be framed, better I will do it myself, less painful. A destigmatization by self-baptize. How do I perceive the moment? I feel warm and the specific acid smell of the water. My eyes are burning. My body is relaxing. But I feel much tension. What I feel, present. How I feel, naked. But it's not related to the body. Do you hear my voice? How is it? Is it okay? How it sounds? Low or too high? Childish? Do you like it? And my body, there is no need to be liked. They simply are. And now, what do you feel, Valeria? Transcending nakedness to hope. I just want to mention that the performer, piano performer, is a great pianist from Republic of Moldova, Alexander Timofeev, who is living now in United States. I think in Philadelphia, but I'm not sure. And he's also a composer and piano player, pianist, and this was our collaboration to this piece. Hopefully we will collaborate more on this. And it was piano and some electronic adds in the first part.
It's lovely.
I don't know. Yeah.
Lovely.
The first piece is entitled I Took Some Water in My Mouth. And it will be two of them. Hopefully we have enough time. How much time do we have?
We have about 5 minutes.
Okay, just one. It is based on Moldavian folklore, traditional dance, hora, and it is called hora ca la caval. Caval is a specific instrument like flute, but we will sing it in a gypsy genre manner.
Very lovely.
Yeah. This is Ruslan.
Welcome. Welcome. Just lovely, absolutely lovely, the both of you. Very, very good.
Thank you.
Valeria, Barbas, just wonderful.
And Ruslan, Ciotu.
Ruslan, Ciotu, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. If you're welcome to stay and listen. Ian has got some amazing stuff for you, but if you have to go, I understand. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, both of you. Valeria, I hope to have you back again sometime, okay?
Yes.
Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I turn to my good friend, the talented author and scholar, a poet of many, many colors, Mr. Ian Mckenzie. Sir, welcome. How are you, Mr. Mckenzie?
I am very well and very pleased to be here. And thank you for the invite. Rick, you are one of those, you are, what's the word for it? I was going to say manipulator, but a facilitator. That's what I was
Much more generous, thank you.
all these things and encouragements and giving people sort of openings and opportunities to, well, I suppose to strut their stuff or to just share with the world outside there. So this has been,
Ian, I think as much as I enjoy our little poet Zooms, and they are wonderful, you get a chance to hear all kinds of amazing stuff. But to me, the part I always want is I want to hear more. I want to know about this amazing artist who did this just breathtaking, powerful, heart-rending poem. And this is my little chance, and my friend Mircea, to invite a poet to talk a little bit about themselves, what brought them to this place, how did they get to be such amazing poets. So, Ian, besides a scholar, besides an educator, besides a grader of vast numbers of tests, you are also an extraordinary poet. So
I've scrubbed that out of my memory, Rick. But
okay, I'm sorry I heard it.
Well, starting from the beginning. I mean, I come from fairly far off place in the UK, in the northwest, Barrow-in-Furness. It's now in Cumbria. When I was younger, it was actually in North Lancashire, and it's on the coast.
Was this an earthquake or a shifting tectonic plates, or?
I did write a poem once where I imagined Barrow being swept away by an earthquake, but I won't go into that. But no, it was I don't know, it's mixed. It was an industrial town. It was a shipbuilding town, had steelworks, and actually one of the poems I want to read is actually one I finished off writing last year, I think, which is about that background, about the sites that I grew up with, the huge cranes in the background, which lifting these huge steel plates that were being welded or fitted together. But it was also very close to the country as well, because we're right on the cusp of the Lake District. And we used to spend many kind of family outings, driving up into the lakes. And obviously there's Wordsworth country, Coleridge country there. And yeah, I mean, it's an inspiring location. But for the large part of the time, we were in a town. But Barrow was different to, you see a lot of the industrial towns in the northwest, Blackburn, Burnley, around Manchester, with the little narrow terraced houses like you see on Coronation Street. Barrow was quite a late, I don't think it was really founded until about 1860, about in the middle of the 19th century. And it was people like the Duke of Devonshire, Duke of Ramsden, who these industrialists who developed it. It was mainly because of the iron ore. It was the very rich hematite iron ore that they found in the Furness Peninsula, which I think started it, or it was, so they had the raw materials. But because it was a late development, they were a bit more enlightened by then, if I can say that, in the 1860s.
Sure, go ahead.
And so it was laid out in a very different, a much more open manner to a lot of your traditional industrial towns that you find, like around Manchester, those narrow little terraced houses. There are terraces now, but it was like the road going into Barrow, Abbey Road, it's like a tree-lined avenue. It's very spacious, and you drive along there. It's very you think, well, it's going to be a posh place, but most of the people there, obviously from working class backgrounds, like working in the shipbuilding.
So did you start writing? I'm sorry, I was going to say, did you start writing young?
I was a late developer, Rick. I was going to say in my notes, I said I didn't really come from a literary family background. I mean, you know, they encouraged us to read. You know, we would go to the library. We had a little local library bus which came to the top of the hill near us, about 5-minute walk, and we used to go there once a week or a fortnight. And there was all this stuff that I was reading, stuff like the Arthur Ransom stuff, Famous Five, Swallows and Amazons, and stuff. I mean, my first, you know, adventures, I think, were actually more about escapology. My mother told me a story once. She said, when I was about 3, and we lived on a place at Victoria Avenue, so halfway up this hill, top of the hill, Cemetery Hill, there was the terminus to the bus, which would go over to North Scale on Walney Island, and it was where all the sandy beaches and sand dunes were. My mother had put me in the front garden with the gate shut and went out back to put the washing out. She came back out. I disappeared. The garden was empty. She spent about 10 minutes running up and down, asking the neighbours, "Have you seen our Ian? Seen our Ian?" Yeah. Oh no, I don't know where he is. Yeah. She ended up kind of wandering up to the top of the hill, and there was a bus there, and parked. You know, and normally there was a terminus, so the driver and the conductor, you know, just have like a fag break, ciggy break. So she got up there and she found me there. I was sat between the driver and conductor on the bench seat at the back of the bus, expecting to be taken off to North Scale. And that was like I don't really remember it much, but it was one of those interesting sort of stories about, well, you know, those kind of character forming incidents. You know, maybe that was me. You know, I was trying to escape from an early age. But my first development, I think, because we used to get packed off to Sunday school, and I remember that we used to sit around. We had a Sunday school teacher. There was an older guy. In fact, he lived a couple of streets down from us, and he sang tenor in the church choir at St. Paul's. We used to read, you know, like read verses around from the New Testament or whatever, you know. And he stopped suddenly and said, "Oh, I think maybe you should have a go joining the church choir." And I don't know what it was about my voice that he heard or whatever, but he didn't ask anybody else. He just, "I think you would." And I thought, okay. So I ended up going. I was terrified at first, but eventually, you know, we got used to it. And the other choir boys they were quite a rough bunch actually for choir boys. So, and I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but we had our choir mistress, Miss Taylor. I remember she had a register system, an attendance thing. So each month, you know, the ones with the best attendance, you know, to the choir practice, we had like 2 a week, would get first choice. You should have a table in the vestry laid out with piles of books. And I remember I must have had a good month because I ended up first or second in the pecking order. And so I had a look, and I saw, and I don't know why, it was a copy, one of those old kind of fashioned blue bound hardback copies. It was Lamb's Tales from Shakespeare. And I picked that up and I thought, oh, that looks interesting. And I really got engrossed in it. That was my first, I think, real sort of introduction into sort of serious literature, you know, opening it up and reading it there. I know it was like, you know, kind of graduating on from Swallows and Amazons, and I was kind of intrigued. I can't explain why, but it just seemed to be that was what kind of struck me as quite what I wanted to get into. And then moving on from there, I mean, I got into teens. We were growing up in the 60s, which was obviously culturally quite a revolutionary time. And I guess I started getting into all the sort of rock and pop culture more than the classical culture. I don't remember reading much poetry of any at all, apart from nursery rhymes at that early age. But I do remember, you know, trying to listen in, you know, to the radio to hear sort of latest Beatles or Stones tracks. And at those days, we didn't have, you know, in the States, you know, you had all these kind of local FM stations you could tune into. Here, everything was like the BBC, like the Lights program or Radio 3, and you couldn't get any access to the latest sort of pop or rock hits. And then we had pirate radio, and Radio Caroline was a ship, it was a shipboard transmitting, but obviously outside of the territorial waters. I think they were moored off somewhere near the Isle of Man, about 10 miles or so off the coast. So we used to kind of trot down to the dockside at Barrow with our little transistor radios because to get the best reception. I remember we standing there in the summer of '65. I was a real eye-opener because we were stood there, and we were listening to things like Stone's Satisfaction coming out over the waves from Radio Caroline, and then Bob Dylan's Like a Rolling Stone, and it was like kind of earth-shattering. That was sort of suddenly I was listening to not just these old kind of lovey pop songs like Cliff Richard, Perry Como, that we'd kind of been groomed on when we were in the 50s, when I was about 9 or 10, 11, and suddenly it was, wow, Like a Rolling Stone. That's not a normal pop song, is it? And that
Can't
was
get no satisfaction.
It was like opening up the horizons, and I think I think from there I started reading stuff like J.P. Donleavy's The Gingerbread Man, which again, it was more you kind of like beat culture kind of literature, kind of up to date. And then when we did A-levels, I opted to do English, which was basically English literature, when I got into the sixth form. And I remember the reading list was Milton's Paradise Lost or Extracts. It's boring. Wilfred Owen, war poems. I'd never even heard of him, but I got into that, and still I've got copies of him, Siegfried Sassoon, all of the war poets from World War I. Then we did the Shakespeare, we did Othello and The Tempest, which again, The Tempest was an unusual selection because I thought I'd watched on TV as soon as they did the War of the Roses, which was the Henry VI, Henry IV, and Henry V, and so on, that series on BBC in black and white. I was kind of riveted to that. I watched it. It was about a 13 episode series, and all these kind of people butchering each other in between big long kind of oratorical speeches. It was fascinating. And then we did, for the prose, we did Dickens' Hard Times, again boring, and then Thomas Hardy's Return of the Native. So I became smitten by Eustacia Vi, who was obviously, and I realized she was like dark haired, and I sort of realized, I'm really attracted to the bad uns, not the angelic ones, because she's the one that she goes off and she elopes, and obviously sadly she drowns with her lover in the local weir, which is like a tragedy to me. I was kind of heartbroken. But I think I realized then that I wasn't into sort of your normal romantic heroine sort of characters. It was more like your darker, brooding, kind of rebellious type.
So did you wade through Jude the Obscure?
I tried. I think later, some years later. I mean, I did enjoy Hardy. I mean, I read all of the big, huge swathe of Hardy books. So
I read it for medicinal purposes.
Yeah.
By God, I'm going to get through this.
The one thing with Thomas Hardy's books is a long kind of walk into it. It's like a long approach. I remember reading sort of Return of the Native, and about the first 3 chapters, it was this guy, the Reddleman, walking over the moors. And I thought, when the hell is the story going to start? But once he got into it, he was brilliant. I mean, his portrayal of the country, its characters, psychology, but also because all his stories are kind of like set in these rural kind of backwaters, you know, Wessex or sort of like south, well, what would have been Dorsetshire sort of parts of the world, which is interesting because first poem I'm going to read is actually when I was camping a few days down on the south coast in Dorsetshire near Swanage, and there was sort of something happened there which kind of sparked an idea. Anyway,
let me ask you to stop there for a second. Mircea, would you like to say something to our good friend Ian?
First of all, I think it is a very well known name worldwide on one hand. On the other hand, he presented himself in a very appropriate way, in a very professional way, the very intelligent and intellectual synthesis between the thematic poetry and the originality of the metaphorical language in his literary creation is equally interested in both of them. And I think this is a great achievement of his creation because he does not neglect the expression, and in the same time, he does not neglect the message and the thematic, which are, according to my opinion, three equally important elements, dimensions of literature. And this is what I appreciate very much within his literature, and also the capacity, the ability of giving an equal importance to all and finding a delicate balance between all of those elements. And therefore, I admire very much, not only because of this, but it is one of the main reasons. And I want to congratulate you, Rick, for the initiative of inviting him today as one of our guests.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, Ian, my friend, we are ready to hear some of your fine literary exposition.
Right. Okay. Well, I would say I really started beginning writing serious poetry. It wasn't until about maybe 10, 12 years ago that I was writing on and off over many years, but never really sharing anything. And I never really got to think of it as being anything. I mean, I was trying to be a songwriter as much as anything else. I mean, I mentioned about the kind of like the pop culture influence. And then about 10, 12 years ago, I met some friends. They were getting a band together. So I was playing bass. I joined the band, and the singer, William, was writing the song. So I thought, I think I could write some song lyrics and get some music put to them. And so as I showed them the stuff that I'd written, they said, well, I can't really sing that. It says more poetry than songs. And so, okay. So well, maybe I should be a poet, not a songwriter. So anyway, I was kind of started sort of taking myself seriously then. And this is the first one. This is the one I was down on the south coast. I was camping, and I got up in the morning, and I was just having my breakfast. And suddenly a sort of stream of crows flying across. It was like a stream of commuters. And I started it, and it suddenly, and this is the thing that, I mean, obviously it kind of affects my poetry in quite regularly. I start writing a poem on a theme, and suddenly I get halfway through and something clicks. The switch goes off, and then it makes a connection with something else, which I think is, to me, is significant. And in this one, it did the same thing. I suddenly realized, yes, you're writing about a scene or an event, but suddenly it opens up passageways into perhaps memories, forgotten memories, that have been left hibernating. This one's called Crow Road. Bandit squadrons airborne in morning formation, pirate hordes, black hooded orcs, sights aimed at distant fields, black wing beats pulse with laconic, purposeful rhythm, the crosshairs of dark crow eye bearing down with unflinching intent along their daily crow road, following ancient flight paths, departing commuter belts of nesting rookeries. Then a sudden jolt of memory, returning to primeval scenes of raucous bands of black-winged hoodlums, shattering the eager dawn of adolescence, when I wandered freely along my own chosen byways. Now I trace the faded line along that crow road of first awakenings, sights set on distant horizons, unseen destinations, invisible from this low vantage point, gazing up at marauding bands of crow. And that's Crow Road.
Bravo, bravo.
Thank you. I'll skip the one I was going to do, but this next one, it's called Mercury Rising. And I think it's my first sort of flirting with symbolism and also the Tao. I was into reading the Tao Te Ching, and sort of thinking about cosmic mysticism. I've just written something over the title.
Straight, broken, straight, straight, broken, straight.
So this is Mercury Rising. Again, is one that, you know, sometimes you write something and you instantly recognize that, oh, this is hitting a chord somewhere. You know, it's, you know, you realize, I think, that you've kind of come up with something which is worthwhile. As Mercury rises along the line of the ecliptic, I lie here half asleep, waiting for dawn stealing in quietly, trickling through thin clouds, trimming the horizons. Nothing is moving in here but my awkward shifting limbs, trying to adopt a more comfortable repose, entangled in the rumpled sheets, kicked up in my sleep. The night is locked down tight, except for the restless blinks of the digital bedside radio, which beats the time vainly to hurry along the day that is waiting in the wings. The clocks all hold their breath, while under cover of enfolding darkness, I cling to my dreams like a suckling babe holding on to the coming hour of redemption. The moon flirts, wearing a thin skirt of clouds, rippling in a cheap silvery haze, like a dancer backlit enticingly against the inky curtain of night. The air is still. And in the stillness, nothing moves in here, while Mercury passes through on its way along the plane of an alien meridian, sweeping over my covert visions. Time hangs weary in a creeping suspense, moves imperceptibly towards its sweet oblivion, as flickering eyelids take one last flutter, a faint embrace of dream sleep. And still there is nothing moving in here as the clock off the final minutes until that first salacious kiss of sunlight starts another step along the way.
Bravo, bravo.
Thanks. And there's one here. I often find traveling is a great stimulus for new experiences. Excuse me. And I think I mean, I did a couple of sort of Exodus holidays, and the most recent one, this is just prior to pandemic, to lockdown. I did a trip to Thailand. And I remember I went with a group. First week we were walking around places around Krabi in southern Thailand. And then the next 2 weeks I went off on my own. And for some reason or other, I decided I was going to get the night train from Surat Thani up to Bangkok. I could have, rather than getting the 2-hour flight, I thought, oh no, it'd be more fun. See something different, getting the train, about a 12, 14-hour journey. So this is the poem that I wrote from that, called Night Train. Leaning back, sitting up in my bunk bed in the sleeper compartment, train wheels rattle on comfortingly, pushing me on through the dense Thai night. Occasional glimmers of passing habitation cut through the hard reflections in my cabin window, pulling into dim-lit, ghostly stations with expectant, peering faces picked out in the gloom from beneath glowing sodium lights lining bare platforms. The rocking motion reassures, reinforcing the sense of movement, the journey onward, closer and closer with each click of wheel on rail, towards our final destination, Krung Thep, better known as Bangkok, clinging to the thin edge of coastline, Chumphon, Prachuap Khiri Kuriburi, Phetchaburi, all the way along to the end of the line, Hua Lamphon station. I'm trying to read a book. I can't sleep, drinking it all in, traveling in a strange land with strange dreams, perceptions stretched like pliable elastic bands, enclosed by indecipherable noises, strange aromas. Senses always seem more alert, fending unfamiliar sounds and sights. No time for complacency, the familiar that becomes a blank background to project bare prejudices onto a green screen of parochial affinities. But here, wrapped in gleaming chrome and aluminium, I feel awake, alive to every small vibration, reflected in the lucid, dancing glass of my half-curtained view of the world. The steel tracks humming softly sing to me, we're on our way, we're on our way, and tomorrow is waiting eagerly in the wings, ready to step into a new day.
I like that use of the train travel as the metaphor for this new experience, this new day. Very nice.
Okay, I'll just jump on a couple. This is one, obviously, coming out the other end of the pandemic and lockdowns, and I'm sure everyone has written their lockdown poem, or several. This is one. This is the one that struck me when I read it through again, as being the one that catches for me that sort of strange, eerie feeling. This kind of what's going on. You walk out and this normal traffic noise has disappeared, and you actually hear bird song really loud. There's something really sort of strange. Images at night time, everything is quiet, like a cushion of blackness. It is between you and the outside world. So it's called A Strange Silence. A strange silence seeps into the room through the cracks between the window frames. It's as if the world outside has collectively taken a deep breath. A straining ear catches only a whiff of wind, disguised as a faint hum of rubber against tarmac. I want to catch it in my hand, but it deftly evades capture, like a ghost that craves attention but cannot change form to trespass into our dimension. And the silence moves about me with the shapeless limbs of an amoeba-like presence, surrounding me like pulsating stabs of decaying emptiness. And now it sits in the corner of my room, hunkering down like an uninvited guest, and I am looking blankly ahead, waiting for it to leave of its own accord.
Bravo. Bravo. I really enjoy the fact that you can mingle, you seem to mingle, some dark undercurrents with some light, joyous pieces as well. I really enjoy that of your work.
Yeah, I've had people say that before. I mean, I'm kind of feeling that it's like I can go down into the deeps and find. And say, well, I don't feel so scared now because I realize I can always find my way back to the top again. So, whereas some people I think might find that because they find, or think if they go down there, they won't be able to get back up again. But I feel quite strong, and obviously I think as well that because I come from, I think, a kind of a musical background. I mean, I say I was in the choir. I play instruments. I've kind of my main sort of cultural influences are probably musical, like with rock and pop music or jazz, and all the things that I've kind of developed, and got into more. So I find that is a nice way to build things up, let's go down there, but we'll find our way back again. And I want to do this one. This is the one I mentioned, but it's called Shipwrights. This is the one I'm talking about my background from Barrow, growing up in an engineering shipbuilding town. And funnily enough, I started this poem. I got about half of the first section written and I dropped it. I couldn't think about how to carry it on or finish it off. And then about a year, maybe 2 years later, I did it, and it kind of almost wrote it almost itself very quickly. And when I look back, I thought, because it was about like building ships, and I thought, actually, it's taking as long to write this poem as it took to build some of those ships that I put together. So there was a little bit of a kind of a sort of a chime there. So it's called Shipwrights. They built the ships, their gnarled hands, sinewed and blue-veined like ripe Stilton, lined up the keels, true as hard-edged diamonds. They hammered the bolts, set the hot rivets, firm and solid, to hold iron plate and frame in bulwarked shapes, no hairline fault to hinder the sleek streamlined curves, watching them slip smoothly away. With midwife duties duly done, they stepped back into the shadows. Even as they gathered strength to continue with further procreation, new hands took hold of their posterity to guide a future course. These descendants of tree fellers and argonauts who lopped the giant spruce of Ithaca to build the hollow ships to sail far out to Troy and back. Where are they now? Vanished into dust. Those blue electric arcs that pricked the thick winter dusks of my childhood now seem a distant memory, hidden in the shady history of an industrial past. The gloomy shapes of grey towering cranes once looked down over the close ranked rooftops of a proud shipbuilding town, grey slated, huddling together in anachronistic solidarity. They remind me of former times when faith in the future, like ironclad behemoths, seemed built to last.
Bravo, sir. Bravo. Having been a big fan of Homer since I was a young lad, that I just love the reference, and I think that you tied not just the shipbuilders, but that ancient relationship of ships and the sea and those who make it possible. Ancient resonance in that one, my friend. Really lovely work. Really lovely work.
Well, yeah. And Homer's a big favourite of mine. I remember reading possibly the kind of Bowdlerized versions of Homer when I was younger. And of course, like, as I said, I talked about my escapology leanings off to the North Scale. I could quite sort of sympathise with Odysseus with this.
Sure.
shooting off and then traveling around the place for 20 years, you know, his poor queen, like wondering where the hell he was.
I had a really interesting thing happen regarding Homer that brought back all kinds of insight to me. I was traveling during my hippie experimental days out west for a big meditation festival. And to keep this story very short, I picked up a hitchhiker, and this young man, very, very rural young man, overalls, one side hooked, big farm boy, right? And he looks at this hippie van, and it was decked out. God's eyes, I Ching, symbols, beads, feathers, guru pictures, the whole thing, right? And he goes, "What the hell?" And I thought, you know, I could get into an explanation about meditation and spirituality and all that. And I'm going to give him a really nice, simple answer. So I said, "We're magicians." And so I introduced myself and my wife, and I said, "What's your name?" He said, "No. You don't want to know my name. I've got a really dumb name. I hate it. I just hate my name." I said, "My friend, this is 1970. If you want to be Mountain or Bear or Wave or whatever, just change your name, no problem." And he goes, "No. I got a dumb name." And I looked at him, and I had one of those flashes that we often take a flyer with. And I said, "You know what? I bet if you tell me your name, I can tell you something completely amazing about it." He said, "Well, sure. What's that?" And I said, "Well, my friend, what's your name?" He said, "Well, my name's Homer." I said, "Homer? Your name's Homer? What an ancient noble name is that?" And he said, "What the hell are you talking about?" I said, "Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever heard the name Ulysses?" He said, "Oh yeah, now that's a nice name. That's a great name." I said, "Well, what is it?" He said, "Well, I guess it's some ancient warrior guy." I said, "Where do you know him from?" And he said, "I guess the Bible." And I said, No, older than the Bible." And he goes, "I don't know." So I said, "You know what? There was a poet who told a story so powerful that it has been told and retold for over 2,000 years. And that man, that poet, that was Homer."
He's the guy.
He said, "Why didn't anybody ever tell me that?" I said, "Well, now you know."
He was named after a
drunken cousin, probably, but that doesn't matter.
Have I got time to read one more?
One more.
Yeah, right. I thought I'd do this one because as I was looking through them, I wrote a little note above it in pencil, and I said, "Oh, an awakening poem." So this is a good way to end, I think. It's called The Dream Catchers. It's also one of my more recent ones. I think I got it dated April 22, so it's quite contemporary. So The Dream Catchers. I used to sit and watch the waves as they rolled in gently to kiss the edge of the shoreline. The summer breezes carried the dreams of invisible kindred spirits in far-off places, dreaming the same as me on other shores away in the hazy distance over the rim of wayward horizons. I would catch them in the nets of my outstretched mind to put them with my own, invoking all those other dreamers waiting on that further shore. And I sit here on my own, wondering where those dreams have gone. Did they come true for someone else, sitting on some other wind-blown strand, feeling the healing touch of an airy zephyr, carrying summer spells of balmy weather, softening the ravages of a withering winter's interlude, staring into strange fires with ghostly flames, searing those gentle breaths that had before caressed my cheek. But now I'm eager to gaze once more upon the incoming swell, washing over the stuttering rocks piled below my feet, to reach out and catch those shadowy streams of tenebrous light, to bring them back to life again. Thanks.
Bravo, sir. Bravo. Nice, strong ending. Mircea, do you want to make a comment or two, my brother?
Well, I wanted to add only that it is one element I did not mention when talking about In's poetry, and it is the musicality, the inside rhythm of it. I'm not talking about the external form. I'm not talking about rhyme or rhythm in the musical meaning, classical musical meaning, but interior rhythm, interior musicality, which brings a spatial charm to his poetry and underlines even more and more, in a more sensitive way, this synthesis between thematic and metaphoricity I was talking about before. Of course, it is not from far away, it is not the first time I'm coming in contact with his poetry, but I have the feeling that today, tonight, well, here in Central Europe tonight, it was a premiere. I can't explain it very precisely, but I think it was all this synthesis to which it was his voice, his recitation, his equilibrated, his balanced way of presenting his own creation. And this is not common. Usually, authors are not always able to present in such a balanced and convincing way their own works. Congratulations, and thank you very much for a really exceptional poetical living.
Thank you very much. I'm so pleased doing this. It's the first time I think I've actually, or not the, but one of the few opportunities I've had of reading a section of poems, just like rather than just the odd one or two at an open mic. And I think that what I think Duta picked up, maybe I had a chance to string a group of poems together, which I think possibly I felt as well, the reason I chose them, because I felt that they kind of represented my voice the most strongly.
And we got a chance to learn a little bit about young Ian.
Yeah, and his escapology his adventures. It's been great. Really appreciate it. I love the feedback that you like. I mean, like Therese Crane Birch. I remember I put a comment on one of her posts. She has this beautiful, concise, succinct way of summing up what you've just put in a poem. So succinct and so sympathetic. And I think listening to Duta there, you kind of, I mean, it's almost like you understand my poems better than I do.
Well, thank you again, Ian, for joining us. And on behalf of Poets of the East and my brother Mircea, thanks again for coming.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Richard.
Mircea, I'll give you the last word, buddy. Go ahead.
Thanks, Duta. No, I really appreciate this whole opportunity. And I feel like people I've met like you through spoken world online, with between the lines, with Kemlin, with David, Leo Sirois, in the last couple of years, I think it's almost like the floodgates seem to open for me. I've written some of my best work, I think, in the last 2 years. But it's been great.
Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy. We'll have you back again. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, guys.
Goodbye, my brother. See you soon, Mircea.
All the best.